Well, may the world go when I'm far away. Sweet may the fiddle sound, and he'll play the old low down. And to swing round and round when I'm far away. Well, may the world go, the world go, the world go. Well, may the world go when I'm far away. Fresh may the breezes blow, clear may the streams flow.
I'd like to thank all of you for coming today to help us celebrate the best father I ever had. and I mean that in all sincerity. He was a fabulous guy. A lot of you will remember back in the 50s when I was born, the culture was a little different. The men worked 2 jobs and the women stayed home and raised the kids. And now, of course, it's very different. Both the men and the women work 2 jobs, and someone else stays home and takes care of the kids. But one of the 2 jobs that my dad had was teaching drama to young children during the summer when he wasn't teaching at high school. And as a young boy, I remember going to Mosswood to the theater, the outdoor theater, and he would have his students, junior high, high school kids, perform for the audiences. And it might have been the very first one that I went to. A young man came out on stage and said, "Okay, I want you all to, I want to warm you all up, so I want you all to do a sing-along with me. Sing along with this song." And he started singing. And so I'd like you all to sing along with this song. And you may have never heard it, but I would like you to sing along with it anyway. It goes like this. Pine trees, 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 in harmony. Pine trees, pine trees. My dad's lovely wife of almost 70 years is here, and I asked her, what should we say about Bob, my dad? And she wanted to make sure that we'd heard about his beginning as an actor. A lot of you know he was in the Radio Enthusiasts group here in Seattle. He did radio acting when he was a young man. He was in theater all through his life, taught theater, directed plays in high school, and it was kind of curious how he got into that. His mother, Ida Hudson, wanted all of her children to have some kind of a skill other than just, teaching or working in a gas station. But she wanted them to have some kind of a skill. And she asked Bob, "What would you like to do?" And he said, "I want to play drums." And so, sure enough, she signed him up for drum lessons. And after a couple of weeks, the teacher came to her, his mom, and said, "Please take Bob out of my class. He's driving me crazy." He was begging her. And so she went to Bob and said, "Well, what else would you like to do?" And he said, "Well, maybe I'd like to act." And so, really, his life, to a large degree, was created by his mother, by encouraging him to take acting classes as a young man. And I think that's really good to remember, that we've got these generations that are helping us. So he really grew up loving people, and I think he got some of that from his mom. He loved his students. He loved the fellow teachers that he worked with, his actor friends. He loved his great-grandchildren, his grandchildren, and all of his friends, his many friends here and with the radio enthusiasts. And the night before he died, I got a phone call from Cecily saying he was feeling agitated. Would I talk to him or sing him a song? And I was in Colorado, and so I turned to my partner Cinda and said, "What should I sing?" And she said, "Well, I think you should sing that Louis Armstrong song, What a Wonderful World." So if I can get through it, my daughter Ursula is going to come up, and we're going to do that little song for you. Let's get up closer.
I see trees of green, red roses too. I see the moon for me and you, and I think to myself, what a wonderful world. I see skies of blue, clouds of white, bright blessed day, dark sacred night, and I think to myself, what a wonderful world. All the colors of the rainbow, so pretty in the sky, are also on the faces of people passing by. I see friends shaking hands, saying, how do you do? They're really saying, I love you. I hear babies cry, I watch them grow, and learn much more than I ever knew. And I think to myself, what a wonderful world. And I think to myself, what a wonderful world.
So we'd like to invite anyone, family members first, I guess. Is that what you'd like to do?
Sure.
Okay. To come up and share their memories of Bob, and he loved jokes. So if somebody wants to tell a joke, we would welcome that.
Okay, I like to see all those happy and familiar faces out there. I'm Cecily, Bob's daughter, and Mom and Shirley and Bob have lived in the Seattle area for about a decade. And look at all the people we've met, all the beautiful people we've met. You're all sitting out there since they moved up here, and I just thank you for being part of my dad's life. I wanted to keep my presentation short, so I wrote down a few lessons that I learned from my dad. First of all, come home from work and always have a glass of red wine. That was a given. Do not disturb the father when he's watching boxing, baseball, football, tennis, golf, etc., etc. Don't be afraid to try. A mistake is evidence that you did try. And there's nothing wrong with mistakes. Just don't have an encore. Another one that my dad really liked, which irked me as a child because it was very embarrassing, was don't be afraid to cry. And boy, did he come out with the tears. He was a very sensitive and compassionate person. Another one that he taught me is, you are not in charge. And being a director for many, many decades, he would say to me, as a director, you must step back and give the spotlight to the players. So on all of the plays that he directed, it never said blah, 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 play, directed by. It was all about the actors, and at the very end, in little tiny letters, directed by Bob Hudson. And I really thought that was neat that he was showing his humbleness. He said to me, the audience will give the players whatever they need. And that there is no director that can give the actors feedback as well as an audience. So he was all about the audience. Really sensitive to that. When someone does something well, applaud. That'll make two of you happy. Be content with who you are. And today's difficulty is tomorrow's opportunity. Look on the sunny side of life was the big one. And he'd sometimes sing that song, look on the sunny side, always on the sunny side. Now, looking on the sunny side, he did keep lists of things that he must do every day. And this would help him get through the chores of the day, and then he could go on to have a lot of fun. So I found in his memorabilia his list of daily chores. 1, have sex. Now that says something about Mom. Floss your dentures. Check for hemorrhoids. Wax your head. Pick your toenails. And check the stock market and groan. Spend 30 minutes making obscene phone calls. Polish your tennis shoes. Stand at the bus stop and wave at the 733. Check all the TV channels after every commercial. Now we all learned that one really well. Or I guess we do it before or during the commercial. Check your boxes of feathers to keep the moths out. Count your fishing flies to make sure none are missing. And last but not least, check on Shirley to make sure that she is working while you are also working. Thanks very much.
So this was my favorite joke for many years. What's brown and sticky? A stick! I could never remember jokes very well. I loved hearing them, but had to be pretty short to stick in my mind here. So one thing I remember about Grandpa was that he used to help me with my homework, he used to read to me, and do things that he did particularly well because he was also an English teacher. And I remember specifically when I was in 6th grade asking him for help with an assignment where I had been instructed to read a newspaper article and then summarize it in only 5 sentences, right? So my job was to cut out anything that was not centrally important to the news there. And I was having a bit of a problem with that. I was struggling. So I went to him with my more than 5 sentences and I asked him to please help me cut it down. And he said he would, and he read it over, and he paused over it for a moment, and then he looked at one of the sentences. He's like, what about this sentence, Rowan? It had some details about the person being reported on. It had some details about their life and who they were and their age. He's like, I think you could probably cut this sentence. And I said, no, that sentence is really, really important, Grandpa. It needs to be there because it tells about the person, and I don't want to cut it. And he paused, and he looked at me, and he said, all right. And he said, let's look for somewhere else to cut. And I actually think I remember this so well because I was kind of surprised. He didn't try and convince me that I was wrong, which is what I thought he was going to do. he helped me find a way to fix my assignment and do it in a way that I found satisfying. And he really honored me and allowed me to have my voice in that. He didn't squash it, and I appreciated that a great deal about him.
Hi everybody, so I'm Dave. I'm Cecily's husband, Bob's son-in-law. I'm not going to tell you a joke. And I will remind you how much Bob loved to laugh. He did. I met Bob when I was 15, so I've known him for 3/4 of my life. He lived to be 92. He had a very satisfying life. He stayed active and mobile to the last few months, so it was really a great gift for us to have him and Shirley move up here and to enlarge their circle of friends. There are many, many things I appreciated about Bob. As Cecily mentioned, he was a guy who didn't feel the need to kind of inflate his importance in the world or his accomplishments. He took a very kind of a self-effacing view of what he did. He would talk about how much he liked to fool around, how much he liked to kind of not attend to the critical details, but in fact he was an extraordinarily successful human being. I always liked Bob, even when he drove me crazy. He was always kind to me, even when I got on his nerves. And it was one of the central high points of my life to have a relationship with him for so long. So I join with you in really celebrating the kind of person he was. Thanks.
Hi, I'm Lily, and I'm Bob's fourth, or I don't know how many grandchildren he had, but I'm one of them. We're from Alaska, and this is my daughter, his first great-grandchild, Elizabeth. And she'd like to tell you a joke.
What is the best flower for kissing? A tulip.
Hi everyone, I'm Adam. I'm also one of Grandpa's grandchildren, and I'm going to stand up here and tell you a couple jokes today. I found these jokes actually when I was looking through some of his old things, files, papers that we searched through, and took some great things out to put on display over there on the table. And one of the things that I happened across was a folder of jokes of his, and I thought, what wouldn't be a greater time to tell some of his favorite jokes than here? And as you may have noticed, something that really affected those who knew Bob was his sense of humor. And I feel it was because his humor just wasn't thrown around wildly. He used humor for a purpose. For instance, when I was little, I was a very small child. And I wasn't overly sensitive about it, but I did get sensitive about it from time to time. And when Grandpa was there, he would always tell this story about when he was, whatever age I was at the time. He was also the smallest person in his class. And the only way he could survive is by telling dirty jokes and running faster than everyone else. Well, I found out today that that dirty joke part was absolutely true. Searching through that folder for clean jokes left me with few options. But I've got two here that I think were some of his favorites, and I think those of you who have heard it will enjoy them, and those of you who hadn't will. You'll get to hear them. All right. So a guy goes into a pro golf shop, and he's looking for a job. So he goes up to the clerk, and he says, "Hey, can I get a job here?" And the guy asks him, "Well, what can you do?" And he says, "Well, I can caddy." And the clerk looks confused, and he says, "How old are you?" And the man replies, "I'm 94. "Well, can you see?" "Oh, yeah, I've got eyes like a hawk. Great. Eyes like a hawk. Can see everything." He says, "All right, well, we'll put you out with a pro." And he leads him out to a pro. And the pro also looks suspicious and says, You sure you can see the ball here? He says, oh yeah, eyes like a hawk. Follow it great, follow it great. So the pro shrugs and saddles up, and he takes his drive, and the ball goes sailing. And the pro turns to the guy and he says, well, did you see it? He says, yep, saw it all the way down, eyes like a hawk. All right, well, where did it go? I forgot. So, an old man is visiting one of his dear friends, and they are sitting in his living room on his couch, and the old man asks his friends, you know, I've been having problems remembering things recently. Does that happen to you? Did you have this problem? And his friend says, yeah, you know, I used to have the same problem all the time, and I went to this psychologist for it, and he gave me a lot of great tricks for remembering things. You know, and it works great, now I remember everything, no problem at all. And the old man says, well, great, can I get the name of him and look him up? And the friend pauses for a second. What's the name of that? It's a plant, it's a bush, has thorns on it, has buds, flowers, many different colors. And the old man says, do you mean roses? And his friend says, oh yeah. Hey Rose, what's the name of that psychologist I went to?
It's Lily again. I'm not sure if Grandpa Bob actually told me this joke, but it's along those lines. And so these two mature people are sitting in the living room, and the old woman turns to her husband and says, you know, this TV show would be a lot better if we had some ice cream. And they're both kind of, you know, losing the memory a little bit. And he had been to a specialist, and you know, he was told, the husband was told, if you want to remember everything, you need to write it down. And until you can remember everything, you know, off of your list, you've got to write everything down. And so sure enough, as the woman is saying, I would really like some ice cream, she says, honey, you make sure you write that down. Okay, I want ice cream. And so the husband starts to get up, and she says, no, you didn't write it down. He says, that's okay, I'm gonna remember, it's just ice cream. And he goes off towards the kitchen, and she says, but wait, I really wanted whipped cream and a cherry on top. You better write those down, that's ice cream and whipped cream and cherry on top. And he says, no, I can remember it. And he goes off to the kitchen. And she goes back to her TV watching, and he's making all sorts of sounds completely inconsistent with making a bowl of ice cream with whipped cream and a cherry. And soon, he comes back in, and he proudly presents her a plate of toast and eggs. And he's just beaming. And she looks down at it, and then she looks at him and she goes, honey, you forgot the bacon.
That's my daughter, Lily. I'm Clarissa, and I've known Bob for about 41 years. I've been his daughter-in-law for about 36 of those 41 years. And I just wanted to thank him for the camera that he gave me back when we had, right before we had our first son, his first grandchild, who's sitting over here with the camera. And it was a Minolta SLR 202, and some of the photographs that you'll see that you've seen up on the screen were taken with that camera. In fact, Khalil, when he was looking through old photographs, he said, wow, you took that photograph? Well, it was taken with that particular camera. And I used it for many years until the kids encouraged me to get a digital camera a few years ago, and then I put that camera aside. I just wanted to say thank you to Bob and Shirley for the support that they've given me over the years, all the way up until now even. And I wanted to tell you about something that happened today. As we were going through old photographs, family photographs, as well as photographs that we had sent of our kids from Alaska to Bob and Shirley, Adam pulled out this folder, and it was a manila folder, this thick, that said jokes on it. And I just looked at that and I went, whoa, wait a minute, is that? He goes, yeah, that was Grandpa Bob's. And I said, my mom had a folder with jokes like that too. No kidding. Well, yeah. In fact, and then it brought up this memory years ago when my mom, who recently passed away a couple of years ago, my mom and he, when they first met, they were like, oh, yeah, okay, it's the mother-in-law, yeah, okay. And my mom told him a joke. She looks at him, tells him a joke. I can't remember what the joke was. He thinks a moment, he tells her a joke. She thinks a moment, it's quiet. She tells him a joke, and before you know it, they went on to tell each other jokes for about a half an hour. And that was that. And seeing that folder of jokes was so cool. That connection. Thank you for being here.
I'm Gary Cook, and I'm a nephew of Bob's, and turned up. And I have to say that Bob was just one member of the Bob and Shirley act. Bob and Shirley were the best aunt and uncle I've ever known. You can imagine we spent lots and lots of time at their house or our house, and it was amazing to grow up that way. It was always fun. I remember as a child laughing so hard at jokes that I didn't even understand because of the way it was presented, that spaghetti would come out of my nose. Tell you how much I appreciate that. You know, the first part of last month, I was fortunate enough to come up and be able to talk to Bob. And I thanked him for all the times we fished. My goodness, we fished all over the country. And I loved that. And I thanked him for all the fun we had. And I thanked him for showing me how to live life with fun. Before I came, I contacted my kids who live in different parts of the state, and they said, you know, I asked them, what should I tell Bob, because he affected their lives. And he says, both of them independently came up with the same thing. They said, thank Bob for showing us how to live life with gusto. And he did live life with gusto. And I told Bob, I said, thanks for showing us how to live life with gusto. And he said, gusto, that's the word, gusto. And now it kind of dawns on me, maybe he was playing a crossword puzzle in his head. But I think that epitomizes Bob's life. He showed us how to live with gusto, and I want to do that.
Hello, I'm Ursula, and I am the second youngest grandchild. And I thought for sure I couldn't think of like my favorite story of my Grandpa Bob, but I just thought of one while Gary was talking about just Grandpa Bob's presence and and how he was always smiling at everything. He would just sit back and watch his grandkids and just smile the whole time. And so we're all sitting at the table. It was probably 8 years ago or so, 8 or 10 years ago. And he had this mug, and it was, we had just finished eating dinner and we were about to eat dessert, and he had this mug with coffee in it or whatever it was, decaf. And whenever you picked it up, it would sing a song like, it's a small world after all. And then when he put it down, it would stop. And every time he'd pick it up, we'd all like start giggling. And then he'd put it down. and they'd pick it up, and we'd start giggling a little harder. And then after like 8 times, we just like, we're all giggling around the table. And he was laughing along with us the whole time. But then he was like, what's so funny? And we realized that he had his hearing aids out and he couldn't hear the song. But that just shows his personality. He was willing to laugh at whatever was going on.
Wow, what a crowd. My name's Randy Clausen, and I'm a member of the Radio Enthusiasts of Puget Sound, and it was my great joy and privilege to know Bob only for a few short years, about 5 years, I think, when he was a member of our group. And it was my unhappiness to know him for such a short period. I wish I'd known him a lot earlier. I wish that he had been my drama teacher in high school. Anyway, we were instructed to come prepared with a joke, and I don't know many standalone jokes. I'm told that I can be pretty funny sometimes, but mainly it's topical and it grows out of the situation. But I got one story that might be appropriate here and that he might enjoy, although it may not apply to Bob and Shirley. You know, I haven't seen them the way I have. Anyway, for several years, for about 20 years, I worked for the Social Security Administration. And about 10 years ago, we were in the process of preparing a meeting room for some event that we were going to do. And so there were several people in the room, and we were putting up decorations and moving tables and doing something. And a little old lady, nobody here, but a little old lady came to me, and she had to do something that was down on the floor. And she asked me, "Are you good at getting down on your knees?" And I said, "Well, I've been married for 35 years. And that's the whole bit.
Hello, everyone. My name is David. I'm also a member of Reps, like Randy, and I only knew thank you very much. I only knew Randy for, Bob, excuse me, for a few short years, and it was mostly through the Reps Readers group that we were doing performances in. And I always loved, I don't have any jokes to say today, it's just all about sharing, because I do a lot of acting on the theater and the stage and everything like that. And I really enjoyed just talking shop with Bob, because he really knew acting. And it was just enjoyable to talk to him about old-time radio and all the plays he had done, musicals, and his experience directing actors and things like that. It was really enjoyable. And a couple times I got a chance to work with Bob, directing him, and some recreations we would do. And he just had a wonderful sense of humor, and his timing was impeccable. He just really knew how to get behind a character and make it real. And I got a chance, the great opportunity to direct him. We were doing a recreation of a Christmas Carol that Orson Welles used to do back in the 40s. And I didn't have to give him any direction at all, essentially. He just lived that character, and he was so wonderful, and it was one of the best times of my life working with him. And he was just a really nice guy, great sense of humor, and yeah, it was just a wonderful thing to know him, and I wish I had known him longer, because he had always had a hail fellow, well met attitude. You'd see, it was like he hadn't seen you in 20 years. You'd see, and he was just such a great guy, and that's basically all I want to say. But it was wonderful knowing him.
Hi, I'm Jeff McLaughlin, and I've known Bob, I'm not sure, probably since Rowan was born. And I'm old friends with Dave and Cecily and some other folks here in town. And I would second what you're just saying, that I've listened to that radio broadcast on on Scrooge, and he had it nailed. And as other people have said, Bob's remarkable for his ability to just put you at ease with a joke and then an interest in you. Yeah, it's really pretty impressive. I couldn't pass up the idea of a joke because he's so full of them. I had to look these up, but I think they're ones that I can imagine him telling. So there's this fellow with a parrot, and the parrot swears like a sailor. I mean, he's a pistol. He just can go swear for 5 minutes straight without repeating himself. Okay? The trouble is, the guy who owns the parrot has fallen madly in love with a gorgeous, refined woman, and he's just afraid to death that this parrot's going to ruin his relationship. So one day, it just gets too much for him, so he grabs the bird by the throat, shakes him really hard, and says, "Quit it!" But this just makes the bird mad, and he swears more than ever. Okay. Then the guy gets mad and says, "Okay for you," and he takes the bird and locks him in the kitchen cabinet. And this really aggravates the bird. He claws and scratches, and when the guy finally lets him out, the bird cuts loose with a stream of invective like nobody's ever heard before. At this point, the guy is so mad that he throws the bird in the freezer. And for the first few seconds, there's this terrible din. The bird kicks and claws and thrashes, and then suddenly it gets very quiet. And at first the guy just waits and thinks maybe he's finally had it, but then he starts to think the bird may be hurt. He may start to worry about the bird, so after a couple minutes of silence, he's so worried he opens the freezer door. And the bird calmly climbs onto the man's outstretched arm and said, "Awfully sorry about the trouble I gave you. I'll do my best to improve my vocabulary from now on." And the man is astounded, of course. He can't understand this transformation the bird had come over the parrot. And then the parrot says, "And what did that chicken do?" Another parrot joke. So a burglar breaks into a house in the richier part of town, and he's just sure that there's nobody home, but he's really sneaking in and he really keeps it dark. And then he hears a voice that says, "I can see you, Jesus can see you." He freezes, he doesn't move a muscle. And then he hears the voice again, "I can see you, Jesus can see you." A couple of minutes go by and he repeats it again. He's slow, so the guy takes out his flashlight, switches it on, looks around the room, and he sees a bird in a bird cage. And the parrot says again, "I can see you, Jesus can see you." And the burglar relaxes and says, "So what? You're just a parrot." "I may be just a parrot," says the parrot, "but Jesus is a Doberman."
Oh, Ollie's coming.
Here. Wait.
I don't know if Emily's going to tell a joke. Are you going to tell a joke, Emily?
Get up on here.
There you go.
So this is Amelie, Ursula's daughter, but she wanted to be with me. So I just wanted to say that Grandpa Bob actually sent me to acting school. Actually, I got into acting on a fluke, and it was a strange, I don't know, anyway, it must have been destiny that I became an actor in Alaska, and I guess I did that for a couple of years, and then, of course, Grandpa Bob heard about it, and I expressed interest in going to San Francisco, the American Conservatory Theater Summer Training Institute, and he sent me, and he said, "Whatever you do, you gotta go do it, Lily, you'll never regret it." And I don't. And right before I went, actually, I think I saw him like 2 or 3 months beforehand, and I was coming down off of a 3-week tour in Washington, D.C. with this the Scottish play that we actually did in the indigenous language, the Tlingit language from Alaska. We performed in Washington, D.C. for a couple of weeks. But I came back and I stopped in Seattle to visit them, and he gave me some acting advice, and he said, 1, acting is listening, and 2, always know where you're coming from, and always know why you're going where you're going. I mean, like when you enter on stage, or just know where you're going and why you're going there, who you're going to go see. So it's kind of funny because I've kind of taken that in the real world of like, what if we listened more? And what if we have plans and like put those into reality? So it's amazing that way. Thanks, Grandpa Bob.
Here's another one. It's a sport joke, once again, because Dad loves sports so much. In fact, he taught me how to throw a good right hook. He was watching boxing, and I was being annoyed by the bully in the neighborhood. And I said, hey, these guys are beating up on each other on the TV there. So I sat down next to my dad, and I said, Dad, what are they doing? How come that guy's getting knocked out? How come that guy fell down? And he says, got to have a good right hook, you know, and you got to defend yourself. I said, how do you do that? And he goes, well, he stood up and he started acting. He started acting out a boxing match. And he says, you know, you got to defend yourself, turn sideways, you know, never let your elbows down, keep your face covered. And then when the time is right, when the guy lowers his arm, you punch him in the jaw, boom, just like that, knock him out. And I thought, wow, I'm gonna go visit that bully's house. I got on my bicycle, I rode over there, I knocked on his door, he answered. He said, what do you want? And I said, wham! And I never told my dad that he was the participant in helping me overcome the bully who never bothered us again. And I told him thank you a couple of months ago for providing me with that safety move. So the joke is, Dad was always watching football. So the big question is, why do football players wear helmets on their heads? Because it won't fit on their feet. So, yes. A lot less sophisticated than my father's jokes, I might add. Dad had a philosophy. I talked to him about his memorial service because he was struggling with cancer for a number of years. And he said, I don't want a memorial service, I don't want one. People just cry. And I said, well, we'll make sure that doesn't happen, Dad. And I said, no, he says, but I don't care. And I said, but Dad, it's not about you so much as the people you leave behind. And I said, what are your feelings about you know, God and where you're headed? And he said, well, I truly believe that I live in the hearts of the people. We live in the hearts of the people who know us. And we live eternally as long as they remember us. And that is the only important thing. So I picked out a song that I would love to have you all participate in singing, which is basically his philosophy of life, kind of narrowed down into a few stanzas, and it's on the very back of the program. And it's an old Pete Seeger song. Those of us in my generation grew up with Pete Seeger. It's called Well May the World Go. And you know, we didn't rehearse this. You're going to help me, Dave? But we'd love to have you sing the chorus, if nothing more. The chorus is the well may the world go, the world go. Well may the world go when I'm far away. So Dave, we'll help out here. Well may the world go, the world go. Well may the world go when I'm far away. Okay, we're going to see what key we're playing this in now. Does that work? Yeah. A little high. Okay. So we'll sing the chorus first, and then we'll go through the, well, we'll just follow the words.
Hold it where I can see it.
And this is my dad's wish to all of you. Now you made your world go.
Okay, we'll try the chorus first?
Yeah.
Well, may the world go, the world go, the world go. Well, may the world go when I'm far away. Well, may the world
Try one more time. Chorus
Here, you
again.
come up here and do that part.
One more chorus. Let's let everybody give it a shot. Hold it where I can see it. Okay.
Oh.
Well, may the world go, the world go, the world go. Well, may the world go when I'm far away. Well, may the skiers burn, swimmers burn, lovers burn. East may the generals learn when I'm far away. Well, may the world go, the world go, the world go. Well, may the world go when I'm far away. Sweet may the fiddle sound, and he'll play the old boat down. Dancers swing round and round when I'm far away. Well, may the world go, the world go, the world go. Well, may the world go when I'm far away. Fresh may the breezes blow, clear may the streams flow. Blue above, green below when I'm far away. Well, may the world go, the world go, the world go. Well, may the world go when I'm far away. Well, may the world go, the world go, the world go. Well, may the world go when I'm far away.
Thank you, Dave. Okay, so we did bring along some refreshments to share with you and give you some. We brought refreshments and a chance for you to visit with each other. I'm a Quaker, so God is in my life, and I asked Dad how he felt about my sharing a little prayer, and he said that was fine with him. Yeah, it was fine with him. And he said, I do believe, I just believe in my heart. I can't believe in public. Well, it's my own private thing. So I just wanted to ask for a moment where what we do as Quakers, and when we are going to be sharing, is we just have a moment where we center ourselves. We just kind of take a deep breath and close our eyes. Think about what we are going to be allowing to come into our head. What is it that we're thinking? What's the subject we're going to think about? And then we just let go of all thought and just leave it there. So you can just take a minute to do that. Our God, source of all life, spirit of creation and love. To you we give thanks. We give thanks from the fullness of our hearts. We thank you for Bob's life that we have remembered. And may the light that Bob shared with us shine in our own lives. Dear Spirit of God, mend our hearts and help us to be a comfort to one another. We are all woven together with the threads of eternal life. Let us speak to your angels. Amen. And thank you all for being here and supporting our family and supporting each other. Enjoy. Enjoy. We're going to put the slideshow back on.
So, help yourself to food and visit and
Tell more jokes.
Tell more jokes.